Okay, today I am joined by the founder of Hackerhouse. Can you start by introducing yourself and saying where in the world you are and a little bit about how you found yourself to be where you're at as a bubble app builder?
Yes, my name is Stephane. So I live in France. I live between Paris and Bordeaux. So now we a little bit more in the south. So my background is computer science, and I mainly like bootstrapped many projects, and the company I'm doing right now is called Hackerhouse. So I got into Bubble maybe 3 years or 3 years and a half ago, because I was running my company, but I couldn't code in the same time and grow in the company. So at some point, I was like, gosh, someone must have thought about doing. I was more looking for APIs in the beginning, so someone must have done like something with drag and drops, like because APIs is always the same. It's like read, create, delete, update data on the database, So, and then I stumbled into Bubble and I spent, I think, a weekend learning Bubble. And then I think in less than 2 weeks, we migrated from Ruby on Rails plus React or previous stack to fully to be in Bubble in 3 weeks or two. Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's one of the things I've heard from the other founders I've spoken to over the last few weeks is the rapid development that you get with Bubble. So, would you like to give me like an elevator pitch for Hacker House?
So Hacker House is basically now it's like more a community platform to find a place to live and stay, to live and sleep. It's mostly freelancers, entrepreneurs who are coming from a month to 8 months to our places. Or mainly, we're located in France, and then at some point, we work with some hotel, but then it didn't work out. So at some point, I learned that with no code, it's really easy to, like, when you have a new business idea or opportunity, your product can go into trial mode. If the business does work, you can try it, and if it doesn't work, you just delete the page and you go to your normal. Like, it's really like, for so far working on so many projects, code is like, even if you think the code is really well done, at some point it's gonna be refactored or rewritten. It's like you trash it and then you take something new. And with no code, it's like cheaper to do that.
Hmm, hmm. Is Hacker House just yourself? Have you got a team? How's that dynamic work?
Yeah, so we have a Bubble developer. He was not developer. He was developer in the beginning, but he didn't really like how to code. And then I think when I got into Bubble, I said, okay, I can train you. And then now he's the front end like Bubble developer. And then we have a person for the support and the community.
Yeah. And so one of the advantages you already touched on is kind of how rapidly you can develop the app. That's fascinating to hear. Moving from like a traditional coding platform over to Bubble and to do it so quickly. How about like your funding situation? Would you mind sharing? Have you bootstrapped it? Have you looked for investors? What's your take on that?
So we're bootstrapped. I mean, some of the apartment or the properties you see on the website is properties that we got like a mortgage through the bank, so like normal funding, but no investors like capital sharing or anything like that. It's like 100% like if tomorrow we decide to not grow and just focus on building mobile plugins, we can do that. And that's sometimes that we do because sometimes we found out, okay, there's a certain feature that we need and that we cannot find on the plugins marketplace. Just say, let's just build it. So yeah.
And what would you describe as the main pain point or problem that you identified that prompted you to create Hacker House?
Was mainly in the beginning because when I started Hacker House, it was like 5 years ago. So I was like, no, more than 5 years ago, it was six, almost six. So I was between like 27, 28. So I was living with the roommates. I was like my clients were my friends and also my clients, so they were paying. So back then it was each one of us had a startup, but it was really hard to, if you don't have the proper network or the proper funds to start something, and we just wanted to gather into the place, have just like high speed Wi-Fi and a bed and a desk, and that was the main problem like I was solving back then. And then of course like I got older and now I have a son, but back then was this kind of like you don't know anyone, like especially in a big city, and you come and you would like meet different people and you will hang out with them, they become your friends or not, or sometimes some people are just like they are looking for a place for 2 or 3 months to get to know the city, and there's some people and then they would have their more long-term accommodation.
Mm. Great, thank you. I suppose someone listening or watching this back might be thinking, yeah, everyone's heard of Airbnb. What? How would you describe you offer something different to like some of the kind of international giants of kind of property rental? Yeah, what would you say to them?
So the difference, I mean, we get a lot of inspiration from Airbnb, from the way they organize the, UX and like the features. So that's how we got some of the features. We just translate them to our use case. For example, we only do long stays, like from 1 month to 8 months. So basically, people cannot pick like for 2 or 3 nights. So that's what something we needed to change from the beginning,
Mhm.
because it's not a hotel. If they want to stay 2 nights, they can go on Airbnb or any hostels that are available. Um, I think at some point I realized that I will not be on Airbnb, and I'm fine with that. At some point I already wanted to be on a marketplace like huge, like having thousands of transactions and properties. And then in the end, I realized that okay, um, I'm profitable. I don't have to run against like growing. Some of my friends have raised money, and basically, when they raise money, the investors want them to have like a CTO who know how to code, who know how to scale and everything. And they have this kind of pressure, to build a scalable like product and dev team, for a startup
Mhm.
who have raised money, if you don't have like a team of 20 or 30 engineers, it doesn't like fit, the papers that other later investor would invest in, because they're afraid of no code, of like the fact that it's hosted on some cloud server and stuff like that. So at some point, I realized also that I like to build things. When I find that something is missing or I can find the answer, I would just like spend 1 or 2 weeks to build it. I think it's kind of enabled the creativity. Um, so yeah, you can have a marketplace that just have like your properties and a few other properties of people who love your project or concept, and that's what we have now. And we're profitable, so we just don't run after growing. Sometimes like some clients, they can be really annoying, and then you're chasing after them. And then for us, is okay. I think once you realize that you can be a marketplace, but being small is fine too, as long as you're profitable. And I think Bubble in some way can maintain your costs really low, so you can focus on other things or you can grow slowly as well. I think you can grow at the space that you would like to do. If you have a team of engineers, you have a different kind of pressure because the cost of a developer is so high now, that you have the pressure to raise, and then to have a CTO and then the whole team behind you to build just a product, But now with Bubble, you can realize that okay, you can be profitable, have a small team, but still you can have a lot of fun like doing that.
Mm. Thanks. You've given a like a perfect pitch for all good things about no code and app development and Bubble. How did you get started? I mean, kind of this is a question about like user acquisition. You a marketplace is maybe doubly as hard because you've got to have the like customers and the provider in this case of the properties. What can you share about how you approached getting of those two different types of users on your platform. How did you get one, and then what were your plans to grow from there?
So we start being the provider. So basically, we can have like two or three houses. That's what we do. It's mainly our houses. I mean, the first one is my house. So basically, I was doing my house, and then that's how I started. And we try to fill that first house, and then people like they kind of like get curious about like, oh, what's a hacker house? Why do people remote work? Like back then, like 6 years ago, remote work was like really awkward, like working from home, that they're crazy,
Hmm.
um, so we started from that, and then slowly, like, you have those really early adopters who say, okay, I have a building there. You can try to make your concept there, and that's how we started. Like from one to two to two to four, and then that's how we start like having those suppliers. Even today, we don't even have like the formula, like the sign up for landlords, because we start working with the hotels, we start working like with big companies, and we see that it didn't work out. So we are still like figuring out like how can we scale like the supplier part,
Hmm.
because we realized that what works for Airbnb, like taking 15% on every transaction, doesn't really work on for someone who stay like 6 months, and then you take a cut of 15% every month, So we're trying like still learning about like what what is the best pricing model to avoid like your provider to go out of the platform. So we're still learning today.
How did you get the first user, like as the guest or the
Oh.
renter?
Basically, we would go to Facebook groups for software engineers or digital marketers and post like, okay, we have a house there, there's an optical fiber, and it's that much per month, and we would show pictures and videos of the space. We also go to rental space for like even students, because a lot of students who are working in technology and entrepreneurships, they would come to that kind of place.
Hmm.
And then as well, Airbnb, I think it's like 30% of the people who comes to a platform, basically. Because we would say like, okay, it's a hacker house, and then people will Google it, and then they will go through our website. Some people just book through Google as well.
Hmm.
Some people even prefer to pay the 15% more and go through Airbnb, because it's like more well known,
Sure.
But mainly from those rental places, SEO didn't really work out. I mean, SEO is like one of the bottleneck a bit of Bubble. Our main metric is to have like the or occupancy rates on more than 80-90%. So that's our North Star metrics.
Mm. If I can take us on a little tangent, you when you said that you've been running, was it 6 years, six,
Yeah.
7 years? You must have a unique outlook on like working from home, and how the COVID pandemic has shifted that in recent years. What would you mind just talking a little bit about how you think working from home as a culture, particularly amongst like software development, whether that's no code or traditional code, maybe how you've seen that grow, and the impact you think that the pandemic has had on people like yourself and other people in similar industries?
Um, I think like the typically what happened with the pandemic, um, it's like the impact on us was way after the pandemic, like the lockdown was announced, It's like when the lockdown was announced, people were still had to work, but they had to work from home. Uh, Most of the people prefer to stay at the hacker house, because they would have like a dedicated office and a big living room, rather than being in the studio on a one bedroom in the studio, So they would have like more like shared space. Um,
Hmm.
we got impacted, I think, if I look at the stats, I think it was beginning of 2021. No, yeah, something like that. Like it was like 6 or 8 months later when people cancel their booking because they couldn't fly to France, or their
Sure.
um, because I think 30% of our customer are from like abroad, so they had to cancel, and that means so they had to cancel, and there was no new booking, that was mostly the impact. So for us, what the COVID would change is like people would, I think, travel like longer, not necessarily more. So it means that they will stay in a place for a month or more, to learn more about the culture. It will not be like fast traveling, you know what I mean? So,
Mhm.
and people would just have like everything in their backpack, and no code makes sense as well because everything is in the cloud. You just need a browser to work. I mean, um, everything is saving, I don't even, I mean, back then I had to log into the server, configure it, and then now, I mean, the maintenance, it's for no code is not that great so far because if you work as in the team, you don't have like the different version of what you're committing, etc. But I think it's coming, at some point when it will get to, if they want to grow for like teams more than two developers, they will have to. But other than that, you can just work from abroad anywhere you want. You just have like a solid connection. So yeah, I think no code
Mhm.
goes well with like being a nomad as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I realize my perspective is going to be quite like Britain centric, but I think that there's the like on the other side of 2020, a lot of people have reassessed basically what they want from their careers, and uh, do you think that more people, perhaps because of the pandemic, are looking for services such as the ones that Hackerhouse offer, or they're looking to create startups? Is that something that you've seen? I think that you might have quite unique insight into
Oh,
like a cultural shift of people's attitudes to work.
yeah. I think a lot of people had time to reflect, on what they would like to do because they're not stuck anymore in an office. So they're at home, they can see different kind of opportunities or ideas that they wanted to realize. And I mean, we need to know like why Bubble was created. It was mainly for non-technical people to create like a product without having to hire a developer. And it's basically where the no code comes in. Like a lot of people started their project during the COVID because they had time. They were just working from a certain hour for their job, and then they were staying home. They don't have commuting anymore. Um, to be honest, I've seen so many bubble projects because um, some people like consult me for like a bit more advanced bubble, like basically with Stripe or
Mhm.
performance issues or stuff like that. And there's a project for anything. And some people, it's just crazy how you can think that some people can make money from this project, but it just because this guy is passionate about that typical issue, and then he's so dedicated to that, and people pays for it. Um, and that's what I like when I like coach non-technical founder who created their own apps on Bubble, because then they understand every like problem that when you say to him like, okay, no, you cannot do that because of that, they would understand it because they have the hand, they made it. And rather than just someone delegating the work to an agency, if you say no, they sometimes they don't accept the no. So yeah.
Mm. Well, you're a great advocate for no code and for Bubble. But what are some of the biggest limitations you've experienced, both with apps that you've worked on and like you say, people who've come to you asking, "Can you do X, Y, Z?" What limitations would you think are important to share with someone who's just starting out on their Bubble journey?
It's difficult to say because I think the first one is, I would say, is the database, like know how to modelize your data. I've seen for people who've taken like um, computer science degree or just they've done 2 or 3 years of IT. They are way like, no code is not because now the range of skills for no code is really going from the guy who watch YouTube videos to the one who have a master degree and did computer science and do no code. And the level of like conception and understandings is really different. It's normal because someone spends 5 years doing computer science and the other one just spent like 2 or 3 weeks doing like online videos. And you cannot skip the principles of how can I make my database, what's the relationships. Um, I would say from someone who started the journey, I think it's to learn by doing. That's the best way. You can make shitty database in the beginning. That's fine. If you don't use option sets to set some value and then you want to change something in your code, you have to change it in 30 different places in the code. It's fine because you will not make that mistake again on your next app.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally fine. We all make mistake. Even as a developer, we did that. So just because we did hundred, like thousand, like dozens of apps, that's now when we make an app, we make less mistakes, but we still make some mistakes. Um, so the journey would be like just learn by doing. There's no perfect database scheme or anything like that. And then, of course, I would say if you have an app and a facing front website, I would say to use a mix between Webflow and Bubble,
Mm.
because Bubble is not really good for SEO. Is not really fast as Webflow as well. We all know that. And Webflow is really great at that. So having a front website on, let's say, mywebsite.com, this is Webflow,
Yep.
and then app.example.mywebsite.com is the Bubble app. That's the right mix. Of course, this doesn't apply to anyone. Some people just want to have like the bubble in front and no SEO, that's fine. But I know that some of our friends are running scalable like companies. They have a Webflow and a bubble in the back.
Mm. Yes, there's something I've noticed too is for the exact reasons you've said of speed and SEO, to put the bubble app on the subdomain does seem to be something that's very popular. Looking ahead for Hacker House, what would you describe are some of the challenges and ambitions for the next 6 to 12 months?
Our next challenges is will be to onboard new suppliers because we thought a lot about. There's a huge shift as well in the travel industry. A lot of short-term accommodations, they're shifting to more long-term, with the opportunity for remote workers. And this is why we're trying to analyze to bring on new suppliers. So we have a whole roadmap on how to make those long stays and suppliers going into the platform and why would they use us rather than just renting on Airbnb. That's one of the biggest roadmap for the next 6 to 12 months. On the short term, we have like a few plugins to release on Bubble. Basically, there's one with I don't know if you use Stripe, but sometimes it asks you for it sends you a SMS, a text message on your phone, and then you type in the code. And basically there was nothing like that, and we have an authentication with like text code, so we just make a plugin to have the input with the numbers, that you would type in when you receive the text. But yeah, mostly that's our next challenge. Did I miss anything?
No, that's very comprehensive. I've just got one final question for you, and thank you so much for all your insights and perspectives and advice that you've shared. So, finally, what's the one thing that you wish you knew about building with Bubble before you got started?
Hmm. I wish the responsive engine was born before I started. Oh, I swear, because before the responsive engine, the new responsive engine, we were making things like worry about just to have like a responsive height in the window. We were using some hacks all around and the page was so slow. Oh yeah, we gained 30% of loading time since the new responsive engine. Um, no, I mean, I think the tool Bubble will not be perfect, and you will evolve. Like sometimes I learn to not fight against something that is missing in Bubble. You know, so okay, at some point they're gonna implement it, and then it will like I will I will like do this feature when it will be done, you know. Like lately, I've seen that custom events can have multiple parameters now. Um, and before we couldn't do that. It was only one parameter for custom events. And today we can refactor the whole code again. There will be a week of like, okay, we can reword that part. Is basically the notifications. Um, so yeah, I mean, don't fight against the feature that is missing or any bug. It will be solved. The forum is your best friend. Try to submit the bug report if anything is you find it missing, and then yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for, yeah, once again, for everything that you shared. And just, I think that there's so much, no matter where anyone's at in their bubble app development stage, from like beginner all the way through to they might be posting it on Product Hunt tomorrow. There's something in what you said that will be useful to them. So thank you.